Hello! This video is going to go into creating a new document in Illustrator, creating some basic shapes, and making thick and thin lines around those shapes. You can see that I have a new document window open. I'm going to name that document Infographic. I am going to leave the width at 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels, and I'm going to say OK. I've got a new document in front of me. The Illustrator interface is open. I have my toolbar to the left side of the screen. You can see that if I double click on the top of the toolbar, I can make that toolbar in 2 rows or in 1 row. I've got my swatches. I've got my layers. Where are my layers here? We're going to look for the layers. We're going to open up the layers panel. If you don't see a panel that is important, you can always go to the window drop-down menu and look for the panel that you are interested in opening up. You can also go to the window drop-down for workspace and you can choose another workspace, and you'll see what happens when I choose another workspace. It closes everything up. It opens my last version of the painting workspace, and I'll just press reset painting, and you can see that my painting workspace was reset. My layers panel, swatches panel, so you can see that I can move my panels around. I've got quite a big screen going on here, so I can actually have a nice big area to draw on. Layers panel is very important. You need to be able to identify what layer is on top in the hierarchy. Swatches panel for making primitive shapes is important as well. We're going to need to fill our shapes with a color. Toolbar is very important because I will need to choose a tool in order to create something. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you that the top area of that toolbar is called the selection area. So we're selecting objects with the selection tool, direct selection tool, which works on the points and the Bezier handles of the objects. We've got the magic wand and we've got the lasso tool, which allow you to, in the magic wand's case, select one yellow object and Illustrator will select all of the other yellow objects on your screen. The lasso tool will lasso or allow you to lasso points on your objects. The creation tools are the section that I'm circling now. We've got the pen tool, and you can see in some of the tools in the toolbar there is a very tiny arrow. That means when you click and hold, the tools will reveal themselves and you can choose one of the nested tools for the pen tool. We've got the curvature tool, which is more like a drawing tool. We've got the type tool, which will let you create type. You can click and pull out a type area box and type inside of the type area box. We've got line segment tools, we've got arc, spiral, rectangular grid, and polar grid. We've also got the primitive shape tools, the rectangle, the rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, star, and flare. And then again, another painting and drawing tool. So there's the paintbrush, blob paintbrush, and we've got the pencil, smooth, path eraser, and join tool, which will help you join objects that you want to join together at their point value. We've also got scissor tool, eraser, and knife for cutting objects up. So I'm going into the primitive toolbar, or the primitive shapes in the toolbar, and I'm going to choose an ellipse tool and just pull out a circle. If I press shift, it will constrain it to a perfect circle. So now I have that perfect circle. Looking at the bottom of the toolbar, I can see that the fill color of that ellipse or that circle is white. The stroke around the outside is black. If I look at my control bar, this is up here, right under where it says Illustrator, it's telling me that this object that I have selected and is active is a path. It has a 1-point stroke thickness around the circle. If I update to 20 points, so now I have a 20-point thickness. So there's a 20-point thick stroke around that object. And if I open up that stroke panel and I show you the stroke panel, it's indeed telling me, the stroke weight of that object. If I want to add a dashed line, I can add a dashed line here in the stroke panel. And normally the panels all have a flyout menu to show more options or to give you more options, more things that you can do within that panel that just won't fit inside of the panel. So each one of these panels, just like Photoshop, it has a flyout menu. So there's a flyout menu for the swatches panel. In any case, we have the stroke panel open. We can change the width of that, or the weight of that stroke on the outside of that ellipse. We can add a dashed line, and there are many different ways of adding dashed lines and ways of reconfiguring these objects. So now I have a 6-point dash with a 12-point gap. So you can see the gap's getting bigger, the dash is getting smaller. If I turn it off, it's a unified stroke or uniform stroke. So this area in the toolbar is telling me that my fill color is white, my stroke color is black. If I use the swap fill and stroke or Shift X, you can see the key command, it will swap the fill for the stroke. Neat! So that has a 20-point thickness on the outside of the stroke. It's 20 points. It's a uniform thickness around that object, and it's got a fill of black. If I wanted to, and I'll go back to having this outline as black, if I wanted to have a non-uniform outline around that ellipse, I could. Couple different ways of doing this. In the toolbar, in the transform area of the toolbar, which is what I'm circling right now, we've got right in the middle, right underneath the rotate tool, we've got the width shift tool. If you simply click that tool, you can see there's all sorts of different ways to distort something, to distort your objects. And the width shift tool, its main use is to make the width of a stroke thicker or thinner. If I grab that tool, and you can see that I've floated over the stroke itself, I'm going to thicken it up in one area. Awesome! So that's the width shift tool. So the width shift tool can work on a particular point and pull it in or out. You can also double click on a point and decide which side you would like thicker or thinner. So we've got side 1 and side 2. So if I simply go in here and I change this to 12, watch what happens. It's moved in quite a bit, right? So we've got this crazy shape now. If I deselect, see what it is. So it's got the thicks and thins, and this will work not just on your strokes that are on outlines of objects. It will work on the shapes that you create or the lines that you create with the pencil tool. So I've got the pencil tool, I've drawn a curved line, I'm going to grab the width shift tool, I'm just going to pull out some thickness on that line. Now this is the way that Illustrator works with its vector-based points and mathematics. We've got this line that I drew, it's called a path. All of the nodes that you see here are points. And each time my hand moved slightly to draw this crazy shape, a new point was added where the math needed to change, where the direction of that line needed to change. Now you can, with the selection tool, move that object around, and I can rotate it from the corner. See that I'm rotating. See where my cursor turns into the rotate tool? So I've rotated the object. If I want to change the position of any of these points or the maths that is dictating how the curve is going to be drawn, I need to use the white-handled arrow, the direct selection tool. So just watch what happens when I click on that one point. See those handles that fly out? Those are called Bezier handles. Those are dictating, along with the point position, how much curve I have on my path. I'm going to go back in time, Command Z a couple of times, to before I change that curve at all. And I'm going to leave that one alone. Just move it out of my way. and I'll grab an ellipse again. So I press shift and I've made a perfect circle. I am going to fill that ellipse with black. I have no stroke color at all, so there's no thickness on this object at all. If I simply go in with my direct selection tool and click on the top of that ellipse, you can see that the flyout handles are flying out. They're dictating how that circle is drawn. I can go in and change the position of these handles. I can change how the curves are being drawn. I can also break the handle in half. So you can see that it works like a teeter-totter, and you can see both sides of that curve from the point are moving back and forth, back and forth. If you want to break the handle in half and just have this side of the curve moving or changing, I can go in to the pen tool and use the anchor point tool. So the anchor point, convert anchor point tool, it looks like an empty arrowhead, and it allows you to pull on one point and one Bezier handle at once. So it's broken that handle in half. They no longer rely on each other. So you can see I don't need to use that convert anchor point tool anymore, and I can make some interesting shapes. So we've got the width shift tool, we've got the primitive shape builders like the rectangle, round rectangle, ellipse, polygon, star. We've also got the pencil tool that you can draw your primitive shapes with, or the shapes that you'd like to use in your infographic. We've got the layers panel, and we've got these two paths showing up on layer 1. I usually try to name my layers. If I'm making a poster like an infographic poster, I will name one layer shapes. I can go to the flyout menu, create a new layer, and name it text. I can go into the flyout menu one more time and create a layer called background. Say OK. So now I've got a background layer, I've got a text layer, now I've got a shapes layer. You can see the background layer is on the top. I'm going to create a nice big rectangle. I'm going to recolor it blue, and you can see it is on the top. So it is not letting me see anything else. So I can drag that whole layer with whatever's inside of it below the shape layer, and you can see the hierarchy has changed. There is nothing on the text layer. If I want to create some text, click and drag out a text box. My control bar has changed to text-based object characters. We have no stroke on my characters. My cursor is ready, it's blinking. It's going to be typing in Myriad Pro regular 12 point. That's the default. If I click and hold, my type choices will be revealed, and you can see I've got quite a lot of type choices in here. I'll use my DJB Coffee Shop Venti, and I will create 48 point text, and I'm going to create some words. So here is type. So I've got a type area box. It is on my text layer. As soon as I added text to that layer, it's showing up as a sublayer of text. The shapes layer is holding my two paths, and my background layer is holding my rectangle. Interesting. You can lock layers. So let's say I did not want to move my type anymore, and I don't want the type layer to inhibit the way that I select the other objects on the screen. And I certainly don't want to select that background layer by accident. So you can see if I'm clicking, sometimes I can click on my object. Sometimes it's easier to draw a invisible marquee around my object. I've just selected two objects at once. You can see that the background and that shape is being moved at the same time. If I lock my layer, my background layer, I can't select that background layer at all by accident. I can also lock the text layer and simply just work on the shapes layers. If I want to lock individual sublayers within a layer, I can. I can click on the object and I can go to where it is in the layers panel, or I can go to object and lock selection. And I memorized some of the key commands, almost all of the key commands. Command 2 is lock. So lock selection, command 2 locks it. You can see the lock shows up. And option